I started Coke when I was 15. For me, it was always like speed, Adderall, Coke, and it feeling like this magical ingredient to what has been missing. From the moment I did my first line of Coke, you know, it was like a part of my life. It's a runaway train. So you continue to do more, and then there's the drinking that goes with it, and then the cocaine and all of that.
Do you think that you need to have some kind of rock bottom to facilitate making a change?
I think that if it's really addiction, there is a bottomlessness to the rock bottom. And ironically, I think that's the thing. If you have actual addiction, that has to happen in order for you to say, okay, I either just continue to go down into this bottomlessness or I declare that this is my rock bottom and therefore I can start to like find my way back up again.
Do you miss cocaine?
No, that's the most beautiful thing in the world. That's amazing to me is like your identity shifts so much that I don't even feel like the version of the person who loved cocaine.
Yeah.
I remember her because I'm very connected to all the versions of myself that I've ever been. But if there was Coke all over the table in front of me right now, I'd be like, yeah. Because I've so become the person who knows intimately that that has nothing to do with the life that I want to live. There's not a day that I wake up and think, oh, I really wish I could have a cigarette or I can have a line or I can have a whatever. I'm so grateful to report that I am the most in love with my life person from having been someone who grew up not wanting to be alive and quite often identifying as a suicidal person to be someone who is almost annoyingly in love with life. Like I'm the person that people are like, wow, she's really, really about life. It's
beautiful.
It's why people, I think, say to other people, trust in the process of recovery because you know if you've gone through it and other people think, yeah, but that's you, I couldn't. You're like, trust me, if I've gone through it and I've come out to the other side and lived the life I'm living, so can you.
Welcome to School of Rock Bottom with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist and a recovery coach. It's been sober 10 years and I know firsthand that rock bottom moments can be the greatest teacher and the springboard for a beautiful life. And as you know, I interview fellow creatives and all inspiring people that have hit rock bottom, survived and thrived. This is a podcast of hope and how to get out of the darkness into the light. And that's why I'm so excited today because I've got the terrific Tihani in the studio.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
She's come all the way from LA just to see me. No, I've managed to pinch
just for you.
Just for me. Thank you so much for coming to lovely central London today and seeing me.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, a quick shout out to today's sponsor of this episode, Gavin Sisters. Head to the show notes now for 10% off their funky coffee and wellness retreats. Right. If you don't know who Tihani is, shame on you. You will do now. So a quick bio and then we're just going to dive straight in. So today's guest is Tihani, a genre-blending artist, creative director, and storyteller who spent her life chasing truth across continents and soundscapes. She's 8 years cocaine-free and also no hard alcohol or pills and 2 years completely sober. And her recovery has shaped everything she creates. Her debut album, The War on Love, blends vintage R&B, tribal rhythms, and cinematic textures into healing anthems that hit deep. She's performed on global stages from TEDx to SXSW, and led creative work for Vogue Italia, Red Bull, and NY Fashion Week. But beneath success is an honest story about pain, shame, healing, and learning to create from who you truly, really are. Wow, what an intro.
Yeah, thanks. You should walk around with me.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. I've given you a heads up on how the show always starts. We're going to pick one of your rock bottom moments, but from there, we're going to get into the joy, the hope, the light, the recovery.
Yeah. So the rock bottom moment that I'll share is I wake up in a bathtub. I'm not sure exactly where I am, which bathtub, and then I sort of piece together that it's the bathtub of one of my best friends. I've woken up in this bathtub before. And I'm not clothed. I'm sitting in the bathtub. I can't tell if I took a bath and I just remained here or I intended to take a bath and I didn't. But I see that there's something on my hip that looks like a little bit of like a scratch, but also like a burn, but also has like some ink on it. I don't know if I just got an ink spill or something. I'm trying to piece together the last memory that I have. And it's been, I think, at least days, although I'm not sure. And I just decide to get up and take a shower and sort of set myself straight. So I get up, I start to take a shower, and I start to rub this thing on my hip off. but it's not coming off. And then it starts to feel very sore. And I realize, oh, it's kind of like a weird tattoo. But I don't remember getting a weird tattoo. And at this time in my life, I don't have a single tattoo. And as I stand there, I start to realize it's definitely an attempted tattoo, but I have no idea how I got it. And then I sort of just went on with my day. And actually, 2 weeks later, I was cleaning out a bag in my closet and I found a broken Bic pen, like a plastic pen with a little plastic container that had some dried ink in the bottom and like a kitchen knife, and had this sudden flash that when I was on that bender, I had decided it would be a really cool idea to give myself a tattoo.
Right.
And so I broke the pen open, put the ink in the little thing, and just went about carving my idea for a tattoo.
Right.
And I was 15.
Wow.
That was my first rock bottom moment. And I say that one because there were so many that came after that. And as anybody who knows, if you've struggled with addiction or recovery and addiction and recovery, you can have many and you start to feel like, where is the bottom? Like, I feel like I'm scraping the bottom, but then there's just another bottom and it can start to feel bottomless. But the actual rock bottom that changed my life and led to my recovery is so much quieter than that. And it was about 8 years ago. I had finished a really long event. I was a very high functioning addict. So I had created an entire event series and I had gotten the cash box at the end of the night. And we had thousands of people at our events, amazing artists, amazing lineup, doing amazing things. And I sat on the patio just having a cigarette and counting all the cash. And I just felt this just hollow, disassociated, empty, this doesn't mean anything. And I think that's really important to say because the first rock bottom moment is usually the one that people think will lead to your sobriety. But often you can have a million of those before you end up just having this sort of vaguely haunted, empty, what is this all for kind of feeling. And sometimes that's a much quieter rock bottom that actually gets you to change your life. And in my case, it was.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Incredibly powerful. I think you'd be a great guest to ask this question. I don't think I've ever asked this question before, believe it or not. But do you think if you're suffering with addiction, particularly severe addiction or chronic addiction, do you think that you need to have some kind of rock bottom to facilitate making a change, or is that a stereotype? What do you think?
Such a good question. I think that if it's really addiction, which is different to, I have friends, clients, people I work with who have never really been through severe addiction, but maybe they decide, I'd like to not drink, or I'd like to be a bit healthier. I'd like to just not smoke anymore or something like that. But they wouldn't ever identify as like, this is addiction. This thing has my life in a chokehold. And I think if it's that, usually there is some kind of rock bottom that has to happen. But I don't think that the shape of the rock bottom is one size fits all. So that's why I told those two stories, is someone might be sitting here listening and thinking, oh, I actually have already had my rock bottom moment, which might just be me getting off the tube when I'm walking home from work feeling like, I don't know what the point to all of this is. Yeah. But sometimes we think a rock bottom moment is supposed to be, I'm in debt, the gangsters are after me, my wife left me. And those happen too. But I don't think that they all look the same, though I do think you will hit some sort of rock bottom, which kind of feels like there is a bottomlessness to the rock bottom. And ironically, I think that's the thing. If you have actual addiction, that has to happen in order for you to say, okay, I either just continue to go down into this bottomlessness, or I declare that this is my rock bottom, and therefore I can start to like find my way back up again.
Wow, brilliantly put. I guess I define a rock bottom, particularly in the framework of mental health and addiction, as being the moment where the pain gets too much. You can't ignore the pain anymore. And I think you're absolutely right. I think for some people that will look very different. Yeah. I once described it as someone's rock bottom could literally be in a skip eating out of bins. I do know people in recovery where that happened. But I've also got another friend in recovery that was in a Lamborghini dropping off their child at a private school, and the child looked up at dad and said, I don't want you to be my dad anymore. I don't like the way you behave. And that was his rock bottom. I know they're both serious. Yeah. But particularly from the outside, they look very different. Yeah. Sometimes I get the odd comment, and I think definitely in the sober curious space, there can be a worry that people are sort of looking for a rock bottom in order to make a change. And I can understand in that space why there's a concern, but certainly in my experience and working in rehabs, like I had no choice like that. Like for me, I had to go to those dark places to kind of even consider giving up drugs and alcohol. Were you similar to me in that sense, or am I just a hopeless case?
I am. No, I was and I am. And I think, again, it comes down to sort of getting into some of the nuances probably about how our brains work. I think like there are some people, as we know, who are just very extreme people. And the way that our brains function, I think, can just be far more reactive in an intense way. And so I think I have lots of friends who, did coke once or twice or even 10 times. And they'd be like, no, I don't know. Sometimes not. And I was like, how? From the moment I did my first line of coke, it was like a part of my life, whether it was a year when I was doing it or a year when I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're more in a sober curious space or something like that, you probably aren't dealing with that same sort of like hyperactive, compulsive kind of brain that leads people down the path of addiction. And you can say that comes from wherever. You can say it's biological, it's genetic, it's trauma response, whatever is that brain patterning reason.
Yeah.
But I think there is a different brain pattern to people who are dealing with addiction to those that are, in a sober curious space. No better than the other. I think they're just a different life experience.
Absolutely. Sober curious space, the grey area is hugely important and the work that's going on in there. But I think you're right. I think the wiring, particularly when it gets sort of moderate to severe with alcohol use disorder or substance misuse disorder, whatever word you want to use, I think it is much more deeply ingrained. It was almost like my brain really believed it needed to survive. And that really had to be countered with, for me, nearly dying a few times for me to kind of wake up. It's looking back, it's almost like a brainwashing, really. You mentioned at 15, you were in a sort of a blackout and a bender and you found this tattoo.
Yeah.
So what was going on then at 15 that you were even blacking out to start with?
Yeah. So I started coke when I was 15.
Right.
And it was it was very like cinematic as well. I think anybody who has had a coke addiction or who has had a relationship with coke, it's almost like this really strange devil that finds you at like this moment in life when you are the most vulnerable to really taking it in and it feeling like this magical ingredient to what has been missing. And I think for me at 15, for so many reasons that we don't even have time to talk about on this podcast, but easily I can say, I had childhood trauma. I was a mixed culture kid at a really, really rich private school in California from a working class family. And I just always felt like I was trying to find my place. And in trying to find my place and having so much emotional stress and also academic stress, I was always trying to do the best that I possibly could. Stimulants and cocaine kind of come in as this magical thing that's like, I can emotionally regulate myself. I can get my work done. I can feel like a positive person. But the biggest thing I think a lot of people don't talk about, which was the strongest part of the cocaine love affair for me, was that it made me feel like I was finally in sync with time. Like, whereas before I might feel like I'm always ahead of other people, I'm sort of restless, I'm wanting people to catch up with me, or maybe my brain is a bit behind how everybody else is operating and I'm kind of like behind time. From the first time that I did coke, it felt like, oh, this is what other people must feel like when they're just operating in time. Like I feel a sense of clarity, I feel a sense of alignment, and I can do the things that I want to do and I'm resourced in order to do them. But of course, with cocaine, what happens is, it's a runaway train. So you continue to do more, and then there's the drinking that goes with it, and then the cocaine and all of that. So I feel like between the drinking and the coke at 15, it was pretty easy to black out because, there's lots of reasons. And then there was like Adderall and other pills and stuff like that that would get mixed in as well. But I think when I was 15, what really happened was I had met another girl who was really, really wealthy and also felt just as odd out as me. And so the two of us sort of became this really terrifying duo of justification for each other.
Right.
As a lot of people who have addiction, you have these amazing addiction friend connections. And I think that's another thing people don't talk about that much is as much as the drug is the addiction, so is the way that we connect with people when we're in that state, because you get to have this really intimate and raw, vulnerable connection with people, which is part of what we also feel like is missing from the world because everybody else is just surface level connecting. So I think at 15, you're ripe for that. It's like your hormones and your adrenaline, you want to connect, but you can't connect, and the drugs come in and you have all of the energy in the world to just do anything wild as it may seem.
I noticed you mentioned Adderall in the mix there. I mean, I don't want to conclude anything. Was that medication for ADHD or something, or were you getting it sort of street Adderall?
Yeah, I basically decided to diagnose myself, which I'm still undiagnosed, but I believe that I am a high masker of ADHD. I have all the symptoms. I'm hyper functioning, and now I have healthy lifestyle wellness things that just keep everything in alignment. I wouldn't want to take medication for myself anyway.
Sure.
But back then, Adderall was actually what led to Coke for me, because I was given a little like party pack of pills when I was 13 by a boyfriend's friend.
Wow.
And it was just in my bag. And I had a really challenging day at school. And again, another one of those cinematic moments. But I went into the bathroom and I threw my bag against the wall because I was being bullied or something. And like the pill pack popped out. And I just chose one from the pack. And I always think, what a fateful moment, because I could have chosen anything. I think there was like Vicodin or Xannies or whatever else in there.
You had some cool friends at 13.
Los Angeles,
I was getting like an M&M, a sandwich bit, a bag of crisps. You're getting Xanax, Valium, Vicodin. God. I want to say I grew up in the wrong country. I might be dead now.
Yeah,
maybe
honestly,
it was good.
For better or worse.
That is one hell of a party pack.
Yeah, so I took an Adderall, and that was the first. And it was, again, that same like, oh my God, what a relief. And then Adderall was what I gave that other girl when I met her. And then just about 2 weeks after giving her Adderall, she came back with Coke.
Would you take cocaine on its own, or would you always mix it with alcohol? Would you sort of dry sniff? I don't know if that's a term used in the States.
Yeah, I think we would say bump. Just
right, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for me, alcohol was always part of the equation, but it weirdly never had a hold on me.
Right.
It was never like that. For me, it was always like speed, Adderall, Coke. Those were the things that
and you could do that
really,
without booze.
Without.
Right.
Happily. I think
Gotcha.
I just drank more socially, and then it just became part of what I did. But and I loved whiskey. Like there was a time in my life where I would just literally like have a whole handle of whiskey next to my bed, and it was just there, and I would just go out with it. So I won't say I didn't have an alcohol problem, but it wasn't the thing that sort of drove me to my edges the way that Coke or speed.
And it wouldn't make you feel like really wired and paranoid doing it on your own? Because often when I speak to people in cocaine recovery, it's quite common that they mix the two. Mix this thing called cocaine, which is more toxic and stuff. But there are a lot of people that could just take it on its own, and I'm always really fascinated by that, because I would just imagine that would make you like incredibly like.
I could take, I think like in high school at some point, I was taking like 60 milligrams of Adderall a day for many days in a row, which is, I think you're supposed to take like 5 or 10 in like a normal dose. And so I think it was also easy for me to take Coke on its own because I had just built up this tolerance for it. And it did make me feel speedy, but it didn't make me feel wiry like that actually until the end. It was more like towards the end of doing it that I think my nervous system and my immune system had just like spent itself. And then I finally actually started to understand how other people would feel when they did it. I was like, oh, this isn't even enjoyable.
And would you prefer cocaine over speed?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, speed just goes on for days and days and days and days. And you felt like you had a bit more control with Coke.
I did. And that's how I kind of like varied them a bit, but I think that is a great way to put it, because I think Coke creates this illusion of control. I think that's another part of it that makes it so addictive. It's like I do this much, I feel this much. It takes this long, and then I can do this much. I can do this much in this way. And I think maybe that's part of that addictive sort of cycle, is feeling like you get to control that feeling of how much energy you have and how much you're connecting with the world or being with yourself. And yeah, I've never thought of it in that way, but I think that element of control and measuring and also ritual, it's like you create this strange sort of like affection with the whole process of, like the thing you cut the coke on and what you use and all of that becomes like, yeah, this odd version of like a ceremonial experience that I think obviously in contemporary society we are lacking so many like ceremonial experiences. So I think a lot of people that end up in addictive patterns, it's because we're missing like certain things around ceremony, getting together and like having a drink and having drugs together. There's something that feels like ritualistic about it. And I think that's why a lot of people, when we do get sober, end up becoming people who like build communities and work together, because you have to create that sort of ceremonial community element in a way that doesn't revolve around drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. You mentioned pills and, even just talking about some of the brand names, I got into a lot of trouble actually in America, when you mentioned Vicodin and Xanax, and I got very addicted to Ambien as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of your story as well.
Downers were never for me. I think I only ever took them if I had been up like bending for days and I wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
But actually some of my scariest moments were because I would just take like a little bit of an Ambien or something like that after being up for days.
Yeah.
And having this moment where I was like, oh, I might have actually really done it now. Because, your heart comes like down after being up so high. So downers were never the thing for me. And I think actually one of the only drugs I never even tried once was heroin, because I just knew I would never come back from it.
The end. Yeah, same for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I started taking Ambien during the day, and things like that. And it started to become ridiculous, sort of going to house parties and waking. I remember once waking up in a field and I'd taken 20, like the whole blister pack. Like literally, I was literally on a field like that, and I'd taken. And you just think, wow, I'm lucky I woke up.
Yeah,
it sort of became. And I think things like sleeping tablets, are kind of not spoken about a lot, but for some people they're incredibly addictive. They were for me. Like I couldn't have Zopiclone. It had to be Zolpidem. I was very, very specific about what Z drugs are.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's like now because, I've not taken anything mind altering in over 10 years, but it was very easy back in 2013 just to go into a GP's office and, get loads.
That's the joke of so much of this whole process is when you see how eager, doctors are to just pass out all of these drugs that can be really life-ruining.
Yeah. And it was interesting you said Vicodin, because I remember flying into New York years ago and meeting a friend like 3 a.m. to go clubbing, which is not really something you do in London. He's like, hey man, we'll just meet at 3. Yeah, I'll meet you in between, 5th and Lennox, and we'll da-da-da. And I was like, I'll be exhausted. He's like, no, we'll just pop a Vicodin, man. I'm like, what's a Vicodin? It was the first time I've heard of it. Like, I think it's part of maybe the American culture a bit as well.
It is.
Because Vicodin's a painkiller, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, all pills are different for different people too, right? So someone could take a Vicodin and just sort of like limply not wake up at all. But I think that's another part of that interesting addictive story that everybody gets connected to, is like, which ones are the ones for you and what do they do for you and why? And it becomes part of that culture when you meet and know another person who also has their own, and like, what is their sort of, like bouquet of of pills and this and that, and how that makes you all go together. And I think, again, to go back to your rock bottom question, usually I think the rock bottom is just that your body gets finally exhausted of constantly having to be like this much this and this much this and this much this and this much this. Like it works for a while.
So being your own personal pharmacist and doctor, trying to tweak everything all day, it's just exhausting.
Yeah, and again, I think the funny thing now, after being such a health and wellness kind of person for so many years, it takes so much energy to just shift all of that intensity towards the things that actually do good things for you. And then once you do it, it's a similar person. I'm still a similar, like intense person that likes to do these things and these things. It's just now they're channeled towards like the bits of things that actually get my serotonin working correctly and my melatonin working correctly, so I have energy to be awake and energy to go to sleep. And I think that's where a lot of us just get a little bit cheated out of helpful childhoods that teach us what to do with all of that energy, how to take care of a human body, how to take care of a human brain.
Yeah.
And so we end up just reaching for the things that are there, which is like the first thing is sugar.
Yeah.
Best drug ever. You know, when you're a kid and you learn like, I'm sad, I ate an ice cream, I feel better. So it's just easy to spill over into like, today was hard, I took some Coke, this is better. You know, it's like the hardest thing.
You know, sorry to interject. I mean, one thing that I hate the most, particularly on the internet, is, you know, addiction's a choice. It drives me nuts. I mean, for me, it did start as a choice. Yeah, absolutely. I chose to have a beer.
Yeah.
Most people decide choose to have a beer. You know, that, I mean, it's such a ridiculous thing to say. I guess people could have a stronger argument with drugs because they're illegal or whatever. But to me, a drug is a drug is a drug. They're all exactly the same. But let's take alcohol because it's an easy one. You know, addiction's a choice. It was like, well, hang on a minute. I'm sure you've chosen to have a beer or a glass of wine. But then, you know, that choice gets taken away. But not only is it a choice, it solves a problem, which is exactly what you just described. You know, you first took cocaine, you first had a drink or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It solves a problem and the brain learns it works.
Yeah.
You know, if you're feeling depressed, I'm not talking about you necessarily, and you do a line of cocaine and your depression seems to lift, even if it's for 10 minutes, the brain's learning, wow, this works.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hugely going to condition the wiring, the neurological wiring of your brain. Your brain's going to learn pretty quick. You need it to survive.
Yeah.
Quite interested because just unpacking your intro here, sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry to kind of prod you a bit,
yeah.
But so we've got 8 years cocaine free. Well, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We'll get into how you did that in a minute.
Yeah.
But then no hard alcohol or pills either. And then 2 years completely sober.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've been on a bit of a journey to go completely off everything.
Yeah. So I'll answer both kind of because they connect to each other. So if I take you back to that moment where I'm like sitting on the patio having a cigarette and I said I just felt that sort of like hollowed emptiness of feeling like this isn't it. I don't know what it is in life. At that point, I felt like I was chasing after what would fulfill me, what the purpose of my life was, how I could bring value and my gifts to the world or whatever it is. And I did a lot of amazing things in that time, but inside I just felt this isn't it. And then I knew that the hard drugs and hard alcohol was just the easiest common denominator to like, okay, let's remove that because that's happening a lot, like a lot. So let's just remove that. And in order to remove it, I had always hated beer. I'd never really drank beer ever. I was like, what's the point? You know,
it's like vile.
It tastes gross. It's just calories and it doesn't even get me where I want to go. So who cares? So I used that as my process because I was at a time in my life where I did not feel called to do a program. And it was, I think for me, more so because now I understand in a lot of the work that I do, I work with people who are kind of like unconventional people who like, you do want to program. You do want something that feels like there's a certain greater purpose connected to it. But sometimes you can feel like in the programs that exist, there's not enough room for you to be who you are. And so I work with a lot of people who otherwise would stay out of programs.
Amazing. Wow.
Even though they want to recover, but because they feel like they don't have a program that fits who they are.
That's great.
And so I felt like, I don't know, life sent me on that journey. It was really challenging. I knew that I needed to be in some sort of community and have a system and whatever it is, but I didn't feel like any of the ones that were available were correct to me. So I think as I was trying to figure that out, I was just drinking beer as a sometimes, as a like, okay, I've quit all the other things and I was still smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. And that was kind of my like, and then I slowly tapered off. I quit cigarettes and then which were, I mean, my obsession also. Like I would say like it's Coke was here and then cigarettes. Cigarettes was right under Coke. And then the beer was it just tapered slowly. So it would be just the spaces between like there was a time where I was having a beer every night and then be like a beer every other night and then be like a beer once a week, and then it'd be like a beer once a month, and then it'd be like a beer every once in a while. And so that was just about 2 years ago that I was just like, oh, I just let that drop off. But the process of quitting the hard stuff, there's a book that's called The Drug and Alcoholism Addiction Cure.
Right.
And it was written by a father and a son who actually ended up owning a really famous rehab center in Malibu called, I think it's called Passages.
Okay.
The reason why that book helped me change my life is because they talk about addiction from multiple directions. So they talk about the more like genetic side of having an addictive personality, it running in the family. They talk about the brain science, neuroscience behind it. They also talk about the impact of trauma and how a reaction to trauma can tie into your addictive patterns. And then they talk a lot from the holistic health perspective. So like certain adrenal levels or things in your body that are out of whack that are also making you seek, like you said, oh, I'm depressed, so I'm going to seek this in order to like fix my balance. And that helped me shift everything because it was the first time someone was talking to me from all of those perspectives at once instead of just one or the other. And then there were like little groups or online programs that I went to in and out, but really I was in trauma therapy exclusively for 5 years straight, doing EMDR therapy and lots of different recovery processes. And that, yeah, thanks, because that like really changes the game. That changed
that's a
everything.
lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, you've worked incredibly hard.
Yeah.
To get,
yeah, that's what my therapist says.
Yeah, well, I know, you know, people
She
don't just
says that
dip.
too.
People don't just dip into trauma therapy, you
Yeah.
know, and just be like, oh, I'm just, you know,
no, because you face all. It's you actually decide. I'm gonna face all the things that were the things I spent so much diligent time.
Yeah.
Running from.
Yeah.
With all of the things that I was taking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not. I think it's not. I was going to say it's not for everyone, but the truth is, if you're someone who is strong enough to actually survive addiction for many years, you're strong enough to go through trauma therapy because you have the grit.
100%. And I think recovery for me is about, and this isn't for everybody else, but just for me, it's not just about not taking substances or drinking, or it's about the why. It's about the emotional sobriety, you know, and all of that, and really going inward and figuring out who I am and who I want to be and where I want to go and all of that stuff. It's and what does it look like for you now, recovery? So it sounds like you've stopped. You're not currently in therapy. I mean, it's a very private question.
I am. Yeah.
Still,
no, I love therapy. I'm a huge supporter of therapy. I am now. I have an amazing therapist who I sort of get in touch with like once a month to do check-ins or on an as-needed basis.
Yeah.
But I have different times in my life where, for the whole past year, I just decided to be in therapy again consistently. The year before that, I hadn't been. So I think doing therapy for 5 years really consistently allowed me to understand, like, we all need therapy at different times forever.
Yeah.
Because being a human is so much. Being a human is really glossed over, I think. Like, I think that we live in a society where people all internally feel like, what is this? Like, what is this body?
Right.
What is this brain? What are these emotions?
Yep.
But so many of us don't have a normalized way to chat with our friends about, man, this is challenging, or what do you do here? Whatever it is that might help me get through this, or what's your experience? And so I think that when you cross the threshold into therapy, it changes your life, not just because of the therapy, but also because you suddenly give yourself permission to say, I don't have to have this all perfectly figured out.
Yeah.
I'm never going to arrive at a magical point in my life where I've figured out everything about life. And that's a relief. And also, when things are hard, I don't have to just quickly react to try to cover that up, take a pill, do a thing or whatever to make myself feel better. It's okay to not be okay. It sounds so cliche and so basic, but it's game changing. Yeah.
I always view myself as lucky that I got heavily addicted, only because I got out of it. If it had killed me, then that would have been a different story. But I feel lucky that I've experienced it and come out of it a day at a time. For me, it's not a permanent deal. I have to still work on it. The reason I say I'm lucky is I think for people like us, you might disagree.
Yeah.
It forces us into two really big questions. One is, do you want to live? I think most people just kind of live. They just assume that they do. I mean, I was literally grabbed and it's like someone looked me in the eye and said, do you actually want to be here? Yes or no? I had to really, really make sure I did. And now I'm here. What the fuck do I want to do with it?
Yeah.
You know, what is your purpose? What do you want to do? And I think when you come through addiction, I think it really does take you to those two fundamental questions in a much more profound way than the average person. And it probably happens with other mental health conditions as well that I don't have experience with.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to live.
Me too.
For a really long time. Yeah. I didn't want to live. And I didn't know why I didn't want to live. I think that's another huge part of recovery for me, was validating myself of why I didn't want to live. And it's an odd thing to say, but what I'll say is all the people I know that have recovered from addiction come out the other side, and a lot of the people I know who are still in it, are really, really special-minded people. Like some of the most fascinating people I know.
100%.
Brilliant, like multi-dimensional ways of perceiving things and feeling things. And I think it's such an immense task to be someone who can see so much and feel so much. And I think that the addiction becomes the perfect counterpart, because it's like somehow you can stay in the space of being this person that has like all these thoughts and all these emotions. And you can somehow grasp just enough with the drugs or the alcohol or whatever it is to like stay on the planet. But if you take the drugs or the alcohol away, you have to ask yourself, like, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to be here? What for? Is there even any purpose? Because can I even connect with anyone if I'm not doing it through the only way I've found to connect with other people? And that's the journey, I think, of recovery that I think is really challenging for people to go on, because there is, as you know, from being on the other side, such an amazing, rewarding way to be who you are, all of who you are, and still be connected. But it's literally like growing up all over again. But now you're in an adult body.
So true.
And you're trying to figure out life as an adult, but you feel like a small child trying to grow up all over again and find yourself and your way and the purpose and the point of it all. And I think that the purpose question is usually the key, but I also think the way that we think about purpose is a bit skewed, because I think we think of purpose and we're like, what's my great purpose? And, you know, what's the best-selling book I'm going to write or the legacy I'm going to leave behind? And I think that just gets us back into the same hole that addiction can create, which is like, I have to be this incredible person, or I have to fix all the things about me that aren't right, or I have to be perfect. And I think when you recontextualize purpose as, what is the impact that I'm leaving in this world, even if nobody else ever knows about it, no one on social media knows who I am, but I can tell that like I've impacted the world in a way that matters to me. So like I've made gardens in the community and nobody knows about it, but I see the impact in the world and I appreciate that impact. That's a purpose. And I think if you can find that purpose and take it out of that grandiose definition that a lot of human society has, then you actually don't need a lot of other things to make you feel like you're good enough or you have the resources to connect with people or whatever it is. I think the purpose thing is actually what keeps a lot of people in addiction as well, because it's too much pressure.
It's interesting. I sometimes I'm on TikTok or something and the algorithm will throw me up a page dedicated to something like nihilism. You know, there's no inherent meaning and life has no purpose and there is no meaning. And initially, when I was coming across this content a few years ago, it made me very angry because it reminded me of when I was in active addiction and it fueled more using. There is no, and so I was getting quite angry at this content. And then it sort of dawned on me that actually it doesn't matter if there's something inherently purposeful or meaningful in the universe or not. I know everyone's going to have their own spiritual beliefs, but it's my job to give things meaning. It's my soul, my spirit, my brain, however you believe. I believe in soul and spirit, but to assign meaning and purpose. But that's amazing.
I agree.
That doesn't mean it's bleak.
Yeah.
It means the power's within you. It's like when people come up with the answer of, I don't know. You know, is there a God? I don't know. Or, you know, is there an afterlife? I don't know. I don't understand when people then go to the most negative outcome of, I don't know. Like, I've got nothing against people that do, but I just don't understand why that's the most logical.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't it be something more beautiful than that?
Yeah. You know, I think the interesting answer to your question is that I think it's when you view, if you view that life is just chaos, you know, that's the negative perception of life being infinite potential.
Yeah.
So the positive interpretation would be like, it's infinite potential. It's anything we make it to be. And the negative interpretation would be, it's meaningless. It's chaos. It's just a bunch of random shit. And here we are.
Right.
I think that it's just coming back to that conversation we had about like how your brain works. Like it's literally called negativity bias, that like because of our life experiences, some people's brains will just seek to create the negative interpretation of something because it's actually how the brain has learned to protect itself and make sense of things.
Yep.
And I had that for sure. I think I went from being someone who thinks like life is a cruel joke to being someone who's like, life is a cosmic joke, but it's like a hilarious one. And there's like this sweet irony to the gift of the universe, you know, that we get to be here. And like, there's all these wild, fascinating things that happen on the journey, and we don't really know exactly what the purpose of it is, but we sense there is a purpose, but some of us think that there isn't, but some of us feel like there is. And there's just like beauty in that. But the journey to get from being the person who thought that was like a cruel joke to someone who thinks it's like a beautiful adventure, I think does have a lot to do with looking at like, how did your life experience shape the way that your brain perceives the meaning of life?
100%.
Yeah.
It's like working with people in early recovery. I'll sort of say, you know, put your faith in recovery and things are going to work out. And they're like, well, what evidence have I got that that's true? Because obviously when you're in active addiction, you know, I believe in the power of being powerless when I'm under the influence. Everything, the story that kept happening to me was everything's turning to shit. So then you get sober and it's like people are saying, put your faith in recovery and things will work out. Again, it's like exactly what you said. You've got no evidence of that.
Yeah.
And I think recovery is a beautiful thing because yes, you still go through hard times. Of course you do. But I've found, maybe I'm lucky, and my friends have found in recovery that things have a way of working out.
Yeah.
And that is surely a beautiful thing. I also wanted to say, you know, we've only met really today. We've had a few, you know, we've got to know each other briefly over a coffee, but you're still very much living life the way that you want to, you know, which I think is amazing. I can tell with all your creative stuff, but also I hope you don't mind me sharing this, that you're sort of traveling a bit and sort of trying to, I love what you said. You said, I'm just going to figure out where I want to live next. Like, I love that. Like nobody does that really. It's not like the societal norm, is it? You know, get a kid, you go and live here, you get two kids, 2 bedrooms, Ford Cortina or whatever it is. God, I'm showing my age there. I don't even know if that's still a car. Sorry. I'm a Londoner. I don't drive anywhere. But I think that shows really how that spirit, that 15-year-old, that rebel that wanted to rewrite the scripts in her own way, that hasn't died in recovery and without drugs and alcohol, is it?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because I think, especially here's the thing about anybody who's ever loved cocaine, and I mean loved it. Like I really loved cocaine, you know? Anybody who's ever had an experience, whether you love it and then you hate it and then you love it and you hate, but like there's a love affair with cocaine. I think that cocaine is like the ultimate permission slip to be whoever the fuck you are. And so the reason why we get so addicted to it is not just because of the drug itself and all of the neurochemical implications, but because there is something in that neurochemical experience that makes you feel like no one in the world is going to take away my authentic self, my energy. If I want to do something, I can go do it. Yeah. And when you recover, you have to learn how to create that for yourself.
Yes.
And that is a whole journey that can feel really defeating at the beginning because you've also blown all your neurochemicals. So you're like, how do I feel that sense of permission that I can be who I am, do whatever I want, that I have the balls to go out into life and do what I want to do and create? And I think that that's why so many people, when you go from being like a cocaine addict, you don't go into being like a health and wellness person just because you're trying to join another cult. It's because you start to get excited about how can I create those feelings in my body that make me feel just as free, authentically who I am. And I don't run. I hate running. I'm not a runner, but like dance and being in my body was a huge part of my recovery because I feel after I do a half an hour of dance the way that I used to feel after a line of cocaine.
Sure.
And you can do that, have a sustainable natural high, and have your permission slip be your entire life instead of something that you just have to go into the bathroom at a party to find.
I mean, it's been 8 years, so huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Slightly simple, but potentially difficult question. Do you miss cocaine?
No, that's the most beautiful thing in the world. That's amazing to me is like, I think that what happens when you really go on a journey of self-discovery, like you said, in recovery, your identity shifts so much that I don't even feel like the version of the person who loved cocaine.
Yeah.
I remember her because I'm very connected to all the versions of myself that I've ever been. But if there was Coke all over the table in front of me right now, I'd be like, yeah. Because I've so become the person who knows intimately that that has nothing to do with the life that I want to live and what feels good in my body. So that person who loved it is someone that I love and I have compassion for that version of myself. But I don't actually I don't miss cigarettes. I forget often that I was that person when I see photos of myself like chain smoking or I'm like, wow, because I never one day, there's not a day that I wake up and think, oh, I really wish I could have a cigarette or I could have a line or I could have a whatever that is. And I'm so grateful for that because I didn't know how it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be something that I sort of had to just brace myself against. And I think it can go many different ways for people in recovery, but I'm so grateful to report that I am the most in love with my life person from having been someone who grew up not wanting to be alive and quite often identifying as a suicidal person to be someone who is almost annoyingly in love with life. Like I'm the person that people are like, wow, she's really, really about life. It's
beautiful.
It's why people, I think, say to other people, trust in the process of recovery because you know if you've gone through it and other people think, yeah, but that's you, I couldn't. You're like, trust me, if I've gone through it and I've come out to the other side and lived the life I'm living, so can you.
One thing I love about your story as well, your journey or whatever word you want to use, is it kind of go a little bit against the normal narrative, which is you got to kind of give up everything, nicotine aside, in order to conquer your addiction. But actually it sounds like you were kind of removing the things in order of what was going to kill you first. I don't know if that's correct.
It is.
But particularly in the recovery circles I hang out in, it's very much, if you want to quit cocaine, you have to stop drinking. But you're kind of showing that isn't necessarily always the case, actually.
It's quite controversial. Yeah. I think, especially because addiction is such a delicate thing for so many people. I think for me, it was a psychological journey of really wanting to get to the root of addiction, period.
Right.
And that went all the way from cocaine, cigarettes, habits with alcohol, whatever it is, to also then like sugar. I quit sugar for a whole period of time just to also observe how I was addictive in those patterns. And then it got all the way down to realizing that I also had like love addiction, which when you research into that, it's again needing something, some sort of other feeling, sensation, reactive behavior in order to feel okay, to feel like yourself, to feel that you have worth and value, to deal with your emotions.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was not just the substances. It was like, I want to get to the root of like, what does it mean to be an addictive person?
Right.
So even now, when I have positive addictions, like helping people or creating things, if I tend to get into an addictive pattern around it, I really will be like, okay, I need to take a break. I need to rethink this, call my therapist, because I just don't like living feeling like there is an addictive force that is controlling the way that I experience life, because I much prefer feeling like I'm resourced to be open and experience life and not be in that state of control that addiction was such a huge part of for me.
I 100% concur with you. Yeah, recovery's been very similar for me. It's been about removing all the things that I was kind of powerless over once I engaged in. Sorry to kind of use a very step one type phrase, but you know, and I remember being sort of a year off booze, and you know, my sponsor at the time basically saying, you know, you can also be powerless over people as well, which is kind of what you were referring to with the love addiction and things like that. And it's just been about gradually removing those things. This episode is sponsored by Gavin Sisters, the passionate teetotal founders of the Detox Balm Retreat and the creators of Funky Coffee. If you love the taste of coffee but want to ditch the crash, Funky Coffee is your new go-to. Made from triple certified organic Arabica coffee and infused with powerful mushrooms, it gives you all the energy and none of the jitters. Plus, it's amazing for your gut, skin, and athletic performance. And if you're looking to recharge your body and mind, you've got to check out the Detox Barn. This award-winning retreat located in both the UK and the Algarve is a plant-based, alcohol-free sanctuary where you'll learn how to be healthier, happier, and more balanced. Whether it's for a weekend away or a full restorative retreat, just visit gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code School of Rock Bottom for 10% off your next retreat or a bag of their amazing Funky Coffee. That's School of Rock Bottom for a 10% discount for a healthier, happier you. Go check them out. I think I was about 3 years sober when I looked at nicotine, so I've not had a cigarette in 7 years.
Good for you.
But it's the one.
That one's really hard.
Oh, it's the one. It's the one that I, to be honest, only ever think of now. You know, I can walk past people smoking and go, sort of breathe in and sort of, especially after dinner. Or my favorite cigarette was the last one of the day.
Yes, of course.
I loved that one. It was sort of my meditation. Really.
Yeah, and that, you know, it's so funny that you say it was the meditation because that's actually how I quit smoking twice. I quit smoking cigarettes twice. Once for 2 years, and then I started when I was 12. Started smoking cigarettes when I was 12, and then I quit for a couple years, and then now it's been 7 years or something like that. It was right after all the others. And it was actually meditation, like small meditations that helped me to quit because I realized that what was missing from my day when I stopped smoking was like after a meeting, going outside, having a cigarette by myself, like staring at the sky and just like integrating. After a conversation, you know, having a smoke as I walk down the street at night, right before you go to sleep, having a smoke before you go to sleep. And I thought,
and it's breath work as well.
Yeah, I'm missing moments of like having a deep breath, having just like spatial awareness, tuning into myself. Man, it's really boring to go from smoking to meditating at first. I'll tell you that much. But it does.
Sure is. And also, you know, with your ADHD roots as well, apparently nicotine's great for ADHD and it helps you focus and all of that. So, you know, kudos to you for dumping that one as well.
Well, it started with lollipops, actually. Right. I would use lollipops to do the meditations, and then I removed the lollipops and just stuck with the meditation.
Yeah. For those that are just listening to this episode and not watching on YouTube or on Spotify, you wouldn't have seen a lovely gesture that Tihani did. Tihani. I want to say I went Tihani. Tihani did. It was a lovely gesture when you were talking about the roots. It was a very passionate sort of gesture talking about the root of your addiction that went right to your core. Yeah. And, you know, you said something to the effect of really finding out what that root was all about. Yeah. Is it too simplistic to kind of, does it really go back to that 14, 15-year-old who just didn't feel enough? Have I made it far too simple?
I think that it is truly the most simple and complicated truth of life that all addictions are tied to the place where we feel not enough. Is it too simplistic to say it's just that 15-year-old? Yes, because of course humans are so elaborate. So we could say, is it from the moment that I was born and something happened when I was an infant? Does it go back because we carry generations of, you know, biological influence from all of the people that we've come from? And if my mother had a stressful pregnancy, then her cortisol levels set me up to feel like I wasn't enough because of how, you know, we are neurologically impacted by all of it. That's where all the complexity comes in. But the simplicity for me remains when I got to that root of where is that root of all the addictive patterns, it always came from a lack of self-love,
Mm.
always. And for me, I was an atheist, then I was agnostic, and then I was like a really, really deeply spiritually intense person. Like I learned all the things, I studied all the things. And now I just feel that all of life is this bizarre, whether you look at it through a science lens or a spiritual lens, is just this bizarre miracle that we cannot explain.
Mm.
And if you can tune into it with meditation or whatever it is, you actually do start to recognize that there is this energy inside your physical body, in your nervous system, and in the world around you, if you sit out in nature, whatever it is, that loves you.
That's beautiful.
And that helps. It's weird to say, but
We've been on a very similar journey, I think.
You know, like it just...
Even though you're from another part of the world,
Yeah.
you know, it's amazing, isn't it, that we've got so you're saying so many things today where I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Can relate to that. Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Bit of a tricky way. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here, but I'm imagining someone watching this on YouTube and they're like 19 years old and they want to give up cocaine and they're thinking, all right, Tihani, what do I do? Can I carry on drinking? What does recovery look like next?
Yeah.
Imagine someone's on day one. They haven't touched any cocaine that day. Maybe they've just chucked it down the toilet.
Yeah.
Where do they start?
Yeah. Wow. So I would first of all say, of course, everybody's journey is so different. So it's so difficult to say. But here is what I would do if I did it all over again and I was to share what works. Number one, I would say find a book that speaks to you, because there is something about being able to connect with the wisdom and intelligence and knowledge of a book that is speaking directly to you and your lived experience. For me, it was that Drug and Alcoholism Addiction Cure. I'll give it to you. You can put it in the show notes.
Definitely.
That book. Read a book as a solace, because so many of your other friends and community are not going to be the right place to be right now. The other thing I would say is finding some way to be in your body that feels safe for you. So if it's going for a run or it's doing a dance or it's whatever it is, it's like getting all of this excess energy that has been trapped inside of your body, in all of your emotional feeling centers, to have some way to release that feels safe.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say, especially if it's day one, because we live in an era now where on the internet we have so much access to people that you can surround yourself with, is like inundate yourself with the stories of people you can actually relate to that have gone through their recovery journey, that are living a life that you would still want to live. Because if you try to follow the sober people who seem like they're healthy, but they're nothing like what you want to live like, you will never actually want to follow in their footsteps. If you find people on social media, on YouTube or whatever it is, who are sober, but they're free and they're living the way that you think is amazing, follow them, because everything in your body will start to actually respond to, those are my people. What are they doing? Let me listen to them over the voices that are in my head.
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is, honestly, again, because we live in an era now where there's so much affordable virtual counseling and stuff like that, like find a therapist, please, because nothing I have ever done, and everything matters, but nothing can ever replace therapy for me. Sure. And even though therapy is not the be-all, end-all, there's a lot of people who get stuck in therapy forever. You'll need at least some go-rounds with therapy. And it's such a powerful thing to find another person who will just listen to your shit and who will not judge you. And it might take a few. Don't give up, because sometimes you have a bad experience trying to find a therapist or a second. But that piece, I've never seen someone be able to actually really truly go through recovery and be a happy person on the other side without it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's brilliant wisdom. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I guess I'd just throw in as well, maybe some kind of recovery group potentially.
Yes.
I mean,
community.
12-step isn't for everybody. There's smart recovery. I don't know if that's a thing in the States.
Yeah. It's not, but I have friends here who, but I mean, it's not a
kind of an alternative,
thing,
I guess, to 12-step. And, you know, there's, like you say, there's so many things now. Big up Sober Dave, a friend of mine. He does a Thursday night Zoom. I mean, like you say, online, there's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
And I guess stay away from that first line, right?
That's, I think, again, the last interesting thing for anybody because I went through recovery so many times, you know, is I think when you go to reach for that thing again, and sometimes it happens so much faster than you even know, you know, it happens before you even know it's happened. But if you can start to just have one moment where you pause and ask yourself a question like, what do I want this to make me feel? I think that sometimes is the difference between just going and doing that line again or not doing it. Because if you actually ask yourself, what do I want this to make me feel? You'll probably hear an honest voice inside of your head that's like, and it's not even going to make me feel that way. I know, because I've already tried 1,000 times. So what can I do that will actually get me to the way that I want to feel? But it's probably not that line or that drink. And that really helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's flown the last hour,
has.
and you know, I don't know what episode this is. It's north of 65. I know that much. Depending on when it came out, it's one of my favorite ever conversations. So huge thank you
Honored.
for coming to see me today. And yeah, I wish you all the best with all your future endeavors. I'll be cheering you on from the sidelines.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
A huge thanks for coming down today and seeing me. I really, really appreciate it. Guys, head to the show notes now. You're going to find everything on Tihani there, all the links to that brilliant book and all her wonderful creative work and all her socials. But of course, a brand new episode every 2 weeks, as I've always promised. And I've never let you down yet. So until then, look after yourself and thanks for watching or listening.